We'll start the meeting, call the meeting to order. It's the Monday night, February 24th meeting of the Carver Finance Committee. And we're here to hear several department heads present us their budgets tonight. But we'll start off with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good. And we have several department heads that are going to present to us tonight. And so we're going to get right to it. And we're going to start off with the fire department and Chief Weston.
Where do you want me to go? Just right here? Right in? How do you want to do it? You tell me.
You whatever you're comfortable with, Chief.
Okay. So
If you've got something
so
for
I
us,
do,
you can...
obviously, I always try to come with something I'll explain in a minute.
Thank you.
You don't have to read that now, but just so you have the information.
Thank you.
And there's an extra one too, if someone else shows up.
Okay.
So I'll just start out by, I'm going to apologize here for a little bit. Sometimes you get a little disembodied. We just came from a fire, so some of our guys are still at a fire, guys and girls. And one of our firefighters has some injuries, so I got to leave here to take care of that. But he'll be fine, so that's all good. So
Good.
So first of all, I think I know everyone in here. It's nice to see everyone. I'm Craig Weston. I don't know if I know yourself, but I recognize you. I'm Craig Weston, the fire chief. Normally, my deputy fire chief, Eric Tremaine, would be here, but he's obviously heading to tend our injured firefighter.
Okay.
So I wanted to first start by recognizing and thank you for inviting me. Thank you, Patrick, for having me come in.
Always a
And
pleasure, Chief.
I wanted to also respect your time limits that you're trying to move this along, so I will do that, I promise. You gave me 20 minutes, and I'll take less than that. So with you is, what I try to do is to be very transparent. You know how we operate. This is basically our budget and how it comes together. It includes our capital plus our operating budgets and so forth. That's for you to read on your time, but I like to be very transparent about. You have the same information that the town administrator has, that select board have, that I have. So that'll be part of your thing. So I really wanted to start by talking about one of your things you want to talk about was the FY24 budget, kind of a review. You gave us some bullets. So just FY24 last year, I know it gets confusing, that was 24, but it really was last year. We ended up in the fire department with a 36% surplus, okay? So everything we budgeted, when we got all said and done, we had a $36,000 budget surplus. That came out of our salary account. Our account is two parts, salary and operating. And out of that salary account, we had 36 in our surplus. We did work with the finance director, who was fantastic, and we recognized that we had a piece of equipment that we wanted to purchase that was an underwater sonar device. So with them and the town administrator, we were allowed to use some of that funds, $8,500, to purchase that piece of equipment. We purchased that piece of equipment, and the remainder of that amount went obviously through the proper procurement and select board and so forth. And I think that was allowed to be utilized for other departments when we had any emergency. So the money, I'm sure, went to good use, but it was nice to actually give some back a little bit. So that's what we did. We had 3 capital projects last year. Each one of them was completed and they're under budget. They were SCBA bottles for $155,000. That project was done and completed. We replaced one of our command cars, one for $90,000, that was completed. And we rehabbed our brush breaker 2.8 for $175,000, that was completed. So that was done. So we'll just consider FY24 done and a success, if we could. Our FY25 budget, which is right now, that budget is $873,000 per se. I wanted to give you an update on that, and that was one of the bullets you wanted, is how we're doing with that. So I would say that budget is stable. I am a little cautious. We have different line items of our salaries, and one of the biggest line items is firefighter salaries, which is for our on-call firefighters. That budget is right now set at $214,000. And I'm cautious with that. I think we'll be fine, but I equate that to like a snowplow budget. We never know how many calls we're gonna respond to. We don't know how long the firefighters are gonna be at the calls. And we don't obviously always know how many firefighters will be there. So that can fluctuate. We don't know how many storms we're gonna get for snowstorms. We don't know, a lot of things. So when we create that budget, which we budgeted 214, it's a guess, okay? It's just based on experience, what we know, and how the trends work. Last year, we were over $36,000 we saved. This year, I would say we're right where we should be. A lot will depend on the rest of the year. So I'd just like to make you aware of that. And the reason is if we do run short, this is the area we run short normally, if we had to. We would either come to the reserve fund, we would all work with the town administrator, would always work with the town administrator, but the town administrator, the finance department, to decide if there were any other funds we could utilize at the end of the year. It's not uncommon from a department to be over on something, and then we figure out who's got some extra, and we try to, take care of it. So I'd just like you to know where things work. Again, I think we'll probably be okay, but I just never know at the end. We are working on 3 capital projects. One of them is our water rescue boat rehab. That's completed, and that was on budget. The second one was the rehab of our training burn rooms. That was $75,000. That's completed, and that was done on budget. The last one is currently in progress. That is the rehab of our last brush breaker 2.9 for $300,000. That's being rehabbed in Hopkinton, Mass. I expect it to be completed the end of March. I won't hold that, but that's what we're trying to do. That's $300,000. As of now, we've had no change orders, so we'll see where that ends up. So that kind of recaps a little bit of FY25. I think we're okay. I'm cautious about one line item, and that's where we are. So
Well, we'll work with you on that.
you always do.
Yep.
You always do. So as far as FY26, obviously that's where we're headed. That's the future. I won't bore you with all the details. I mean, I do realize it's a balanced budget. You guys know that as well as I do. The salary budget will be $770,000. The operational budget will be $143,000. Under our salaries, everything that we have requested is basically following the wage and benefit plan. There's really no surprises in there at all. My contract was updated, and I thank the select board for that. The rest of them, the full-time deputy chief, Eric Jermaine, assistant deputy chief, Boyle, their grades and steps are in line with where they should be every year. They went up one. Our dispatchers, we try to keep them consistent with what we call public safety dispatchers that work inside the police station. Those are the dispatchers that are on call after fire is done for us. So we try to keep them consistent with what they're making. So that's how that works. And then the last one is the firefighter salaries. That will have a 2% increase. Our firefighter salaries covers 80 to 87 firefighters. So again, that's the one I was being cautious about for this year. And next year, we increased that by 2%. My operating budget is $143,000. There are 3 areas we increased that. First, repair and maintenance of vehicles for $1,500. The other one's repair and maintenance of equipment for $1,000. Both of those line items, the real reason we did that is things are just getting more expensive. And I mean, we're not talking a lot of money, $1,000, $1,500. If one of our pumps breaks, it could be $10,000. I mean, some things are easy to fix and some things are not. So we're just trying to stay ahead of that curve a little bit. We're not asking for huge increases. The one we did increase the most was our personal protective clothing at $4,000. That was increased by that amount is our turnout gear that we wear, our firefighters wear, our PPE, is getting older. We tried to replace it at 10 years, and your folks very much helped that. Well, it's almost 7 years ago now when we replaced it. We have to replace it before 10 years or we start losing some certifications. So we're starting that process at next year. You're going to see some capital outlay requests for that. But in the meantime, the gear gets worn out and we have to get it repaired and so forth. So I'm expecting some increases on that. So I'm just budgeting ahead of that a little bit. That's not going to buy our new gear. That's just fixing things that rip, tears, burn, and stuff like that. So that's how that works. Any questions on that? Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just looking at your, and you may not want us to look at this, but what's the new hire equipment? It goes, 15, then 0, and then 15 again. Is that just you planning?
Yeah, no, so what we used to do with that, so I have to hire new firefighters every year.
Yep.
That's just the way it goes. And in the past, we used to do that through capital outlay. We used to have a fund, we used to put $15,000 away every capital outlay, and it was to hire new firefighters. Well, capital outlay didn't want to do that anymore, okay? They wanted to put that in the budgets.
Yeah.
So that's what we did, is we moved it into the budget, so now it comes a line item. So that's why you see it, don't see it. And then at the same time, with all, I don't really want to get into with all the VADAR issues and all the software issues, the money wasn't accountable, then it wasn't accountable, so it became a nightmare. So now what we do is we budget $15,000 in our regular line item for new hires, and we just leave it in there. The problem with that, as I said before, is why I like to do a capital outlay. I could leave that money, if I only spent $5,000, well, there was still $10,000 still left in the account. And next year, I'd only ask for $5,000. The problem with the way we have to do it now, which is how we want to do it, is it's going to get spent. And, it ends up part of your operating. Okay, your operating is basically one number with a bunch of little line items. And you can use that how you need to use that. If I get a repair that's over my line item, well, I'm going to take it from somewhere else. So, unfortunately, and that resets every fiscal year. Where the capital before, we left it in a budget and we could make sure it stayed at that $15,000 item. So, that doesn't happen anymore. I will say, we do probably use a fair amount of that money. So I think it's acceptable to do that, but to me, it's not as transparent to do it. But I can't change that. So that's just...
Yeah, I just didn't know. I was wondering why it fluctuated so much.
Yeah,
but in a sense, yeah.
well, and the other thing is, and again, why, like last year, it shows 413.
Yeah,
That's an accounting error
Yeah.
on VADAR. Okay, that got spent, and if I looked at that, I think about $12,000 was used. But unfortunately, the account numbers get changed, and it's very hard to explain, but trust me. I'm sorry. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
But that is a good question, and if I was you, I'd ask you the same question. The last thing I want to spend the rest of my time for is to talk about what we're doing in capital. And this is very important. So while I do that, I just want to show you this, and this is something I just took out a minute ago. This is from the call we're at right now. And I normally wouldn't do this to you, but this is a call that we're in right now. One of our firefighters did get hurt. And this is a typical fire, we call it chimney fire. And so on a chimney fire, our firefighters have to use ladders, 35-foot ladders, 12-foot ladders, 16-foot ladders, and they have to traverse the slopes on a roof in order to get to the top and put it out. So what I want to show you this is I want to talk about what we're trying to do for capital this year. So there is going to be, with your blessing, and the town administrator's blessing, and the select board's blessing, in the capital program this year, there's going to be a line item for an aerial device. I'm hoping it happens, and I believe it will, for $2.4 million. That will go on part of the capital. However, the goal right now is to fund that with a bond, okay? So it won't necessarily be part of the normal capital, how it's funded. This will be funded separately. And it'll have to be approved at town meeting, and there'll have to be a presentation and so forth. With that said, $2.4 million is this way. The actual apparatus is probably about $2.1 million, what it's going to cost us. I budgeted $250,000 for the equipment for the apparatus. This is a new piece of apparatus. This is not something we have in stock, okay? And I budgeted 5% for inflation. And inflation, think of it as going to be increases and so forth. And what I want you to understand is, if we were to order this piece of apparatus right now, let's say town meeting approves it, you first approve it, town meeting approves it, we sign off a contract with the town administrator, and we do that, let's just say June. We won't see this piece of apparatus from anywhere from 40 to 48 months away. okay? That's the delivery time right now on pieces of this type of fire apparatus. So we're not gonna see this till FY '29, okay? That's very hard to plan anything about, okay? And I have a lot of concerns about, you know, where things are heading in the community, the safety of my firefighters, protecting our community and so forth. It's a little different when I can look at a community, how things are developing, where the industrial stuff is, where's the you know, the North Carver growth gonna be. And within a year or 9 months, we could buy a piece of fire apparatus, get it approved and get it. But when you gotta look 48 months away, that's almost impossible to plan for. And so I have to be proactive, okay? So that's what I'm doing. I made a stance. This has been in our capital program since 2014, okay? So that's well documented. Every year at that, we put it as a lower priority and funded every other items in the town. And those had to be funded, so we always prioritize it, that's what we do. So we always just keep kicking it around. In 2014, with the town administrators back then, we had a capital stabilization fund. And that fund, part of that fund was to fund a future ladder truck or an aerial truck. That fund grew to about $1 million. When that administration left in 2020 roughly, that fund got funneled into a lot of different places, some right, some wrong, okay? But bottom line, it's gone. So there was no money left to buy anything used or new or start that process. In 2022, I worked with the Hillwood and the Town Select Board that we did a public safety mitigation program. We got $9 million to build the Hillwood property in North Carver. That obviously didn't come into fruition for a lot of reasons, but part of that was $1.9 million was set aside for an aerial device. That wouldn't have cost the town anything. They were gonna pay for it, okay? Well, obviously that went away, and you know, what do we do then, okay? The buildings are still gonna happen somewhere in that development, and we've gotta worry about that.
Chief,
Yep.
quick question, because you know, I was involved in the Hillwood
Yep.
project too.
Sure you were.
And was that a 100-foot ladder? Is 100 foot going to be enough for you?
So the way this works, so yes, it was, and not to get sidetracked, but just so you understand, don't get nervous when I see, if this is actually a 110-foot area, okay? You can either get 75 footers, 100 feet, 110, so 107, as they call them. This is not about height. This has nothing to do with how high we're gonna go. We're gonna go how high we go. We're gonna go 3 stores, 2 stores. You know, sometimes some of the higher things in the town hall, consider 4 stories. This is about reach, okay? And as I showed you in that little picture right there, you know, that we're gonna, with this device, we're gonna work 25 feet over the roof line. You can get someone hurt at 10 feet, okay? So that's what I'm concerned about. But what it really is reach, okay? You have to be able to reach from the curb stop, from the roadway, to where the resident lives, okay? Some of these apparatus are too large, you just can't drive in a driveway. So if you look at how other communities work, they're on the roadway, and it's when they swing the turntable off to the resident and go to the roof, it's about reach. And most of if you look around town, most of the residents we see are around 70 feet from the curb. So you have to be able to swing to that, reach to that, and then elevate up to that. So that's how it normally works on those types of calls. So it's not about trying to go up 110 feet. Wouldn't do that.
But Chief, if this picture you gave us, if there was a foot of snow on the roof,
Sure.
what would you do?
So the same thing you just see in that's it.
Really?
That's no different. So that, I just printed that 10 minutes
No, I know
ago. So
you
I
did.
I could send you ones in the snow, in the ice. That's how we
But
do it.
that's what you have
That's
to
how
do.
we do it. And that's, listen, we've done it that way for forever.
Right.
Okay, and I'm not saying we won't stop utilizing some of that, but it was just a perfect example of how you could have put firefighters in a bucket or on a ladder and be safe and work and do it effectively. And that's what I just kind of wanted to, you know, we don't only do so many chimney fires. This could be for a rescue. This could be someone on the 2nd floor, 3rd floor. This could be, you know, a million scenarios. So it will be utilized. And the apparatus we want to build, we always do custom, because Carver is a little unique. We don't have a water. So we have to think about that, and we have rural roads. So we're gonna build a shot type aerial device that could probably go in about 70% of the places around this community. If we didn't do that and we bought a stock unit, it would probably be about 8 feet longer, and we'd probably only be able to use it at about 5 to 10% of the calls that we go to. That's not a good way to use your money, okay? That's not effective. So we're gonna do something custom.
This one's extremely important.
Well,
It is.
It is, and I just want
We
to
gotta do this.
conclude a little bit. You know, we're the only town other than the town of Plymouth that doesn't use an aerial device. That doesn't make us any less than anybody else. We've just learned to be proactive, and we've gotten away with it, okay? But all it's gonna take is one of these firefighters to fall, and then you're gonna wish you had one immediately.
Was the injury tonight?
It was
anything
not.
to do with that?
It was a person that got ill,
Yeah.
and we had to get him off the roof. So we did come off the roof, and we got on the roof, he got iller. But, you know, if he got really ill up there, which he started to, it could have fallen or something like that. It was not a good scene. I mean, it was not, now if you put it in the ice, and we're using water up there,
Yeah.
so it gets slippery. So it's just a recipe for disaster. So I would ask you, the plan right now is we have debt dropping off. In 2016, we purchased, or 15, we purchased 3 new fire engines. It cost $1.8 million to buy that. We did a 10-year bond. The last payments of that are dropping off, I think, next year, or this year.
26.
Yeah, so they're dropping off. So that money is debt that's dropping off. That could be reallocated. And that's one option. So if you reallocate debt, it's already budgeted, it's already part of the budget, let's just say. We're used to borrowing it, we pick another piece of apparatus and we just keep borrowing. It's not new money, what I would say. Now, the cost right now, instead of being a 10-year bond, this piece of apparatus will probably last us about 30 years. A normal engine that we buy is 20 years. So we're gonna probably get 10 more years. So we're recommending we probably do a 20-year bond, which right now, if you do for the 20 years, I think it's $228 it starts at. Right around $228,000 is the first payment. And it decreases every year for 20 years. The last payment might be $175,000. So that's a little bit more than the $180,000 we had for the, per year for the engine, but it gets you pretty close to it, okay, without any new money. The other thing we have is we have 4 years to figure this out, okay? But we have to approve it now to start the bills. So we have 4 years to figure it out. If it does come in before the 4 years, let's just say it comes in year 3, the way it understands, and the town administrator can correct this, is we could do what's called a band instead of a bond. And basically what the band does is it allows you to pay the interest for that extra year. So just say the bond won't kick in until 4 years. You would pay interest only for that 1 year that you got it early. And the way I understand it is there is already a budget set aside for those types of items that we already have. So we've kind of got that covered if something happened and we did get it a little early. The other thing we can do, we can take advantage of an early payment. And I wouldn't, normally when we buy a fire apparatus, we've been paying it up front before we even get it. That is allowed by procurement. And by doing that, we normally could save about $85,000 to do that. You take a risk, but you procure it right and you save that money. One of the things we can with this, about 6 months before we get this apparatus, we could do, they call it a chassis payment, which would save us about $35,000 into the cost of this. So we can look at those things closer to when actually it's going to be delivered, that we might be able to have some more savings. And the last thing I'll say is we obviously, I'm not getting into specifics, there's going to be additional revenue coming into the town for some projects that are being done. So in my opinion, it's better to use this money wisely and for something that we need, and rather than all of a sudden we use it for something and all of a sudden it starts increasing all the operatings and without unintended consequences. So I would ask, and I'll take any questions, and I'll certainly ask the town administrator if I missed anything, I apologize. I would ask you for your support of this. I think we've always been the type that I've never asked you something that I didn't believe in and I didn't think was smart to do. And I think we've held on this for over 10 years. We're gonna wait 4 more, and it's just time. And I think we have a way to pay for it. Don't get scared at the $2.4 million. You gotta look at it a different way. We're gonna be bonding it. It's about 200, 225, per year. That's, when you have a $54 million budget, it's not the end of the world. Okay?
Right.
And again, we'll present that at town meeting if we're allowed to and if we have a warrant, so.
We'll support that one too. That is, it's far overdue.
So, thank you.
Really is, really is.
Sure.
Any questions?
And it just sounds like the current residential structures would benefit from it as is.
Yes, about 70% of the calls we could use in this call,
Yeah.
this truck right here.
So even though we're a rural community,
Yeah, we should be
we have
using
those
it
1 or 2 story houses. But just listening to you today, in 4 years, who knows if there's some other complex that has 3 or 4 levels?
And those are being planned right now. I mean, that's what we're looking at in North Carver. And, one of the things is, they have before they had to go through us to get anything over 30, it was a moratorium, basically, you couldn't go 32 feet. Well, that is not necessarily the way it works now in that development. So we're kind of stuck. Before, we had a mitigation where they would pay for it. That went away. They still are allowed to do what they want to do now for a certain amount of years, and then we don't have a way to pay for it. So, I hate to confuse it, but we just got to get ahead of it. And again, this can be used on normal calls that we go to. Not everyone, but I'd say about 70%.
Craig, if we were number one in line with this company that's building this, how long would it take? Like, what's the, like,
It's 40 to 48 months. There's no number. When your contract is signed, that's the number you're assigned.
but they gotta have other ones in front of you.
Oh, tons.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh,
If we were
yeah,
number
so they
one.
probably do about, this company that we deal with, they do at least 500 trucks a year. Now, this is our aerial, so I'll bet they're doing 100, so we gotta get in line with that.
Yeah,
So that's just, it's crazy.
Yeah.
We never had to do this before, but this is what the world we live in now. Ambulances are seeing it, DPW are seeing it. It took us over a year just to get a command car. It was just a Tahoe.
yeah.
I mean, it wasn't, it's crazy. So,
Okay, any other important issues, chief?
nope.
Okay, any more questions for the chief? We thank you very much for coming.
Okay, thank you.
And we're going to support your request.
Thank you. Thank
You
you.
bet. Thank you. Joe, are you up? We got assessing next?
Here, have it back.
Thank you.
It doesn't have any numbers in it.
No pictures?
No pictures.
We're not into those. Thank you.
A short one. Extra one in case. Just in case. All right. Good evening, guys. I'm Joe Roach. I'm the town assessor. Just wanted to give you an update because it sounded like a relatively informal meeting regarding what we do. So the assessor's office is responsible for determining the fair cash value of all real and personal property. We do that through the inspection of sales. We do that through the inspection of properties that pull a building permit. And we also are required to inspect all properties within a 10-year cycle, so a cyclical inspection. Throughout those inspections, we find new growth, which is what you use under Prop 2.5 to grow your tax levy. We establish the overlay amount. We determine if there's any overlay surplus. We oversee motor vehicle excise, which is the town's largest local receipt. We act on abatement and exemption applications, do betterments related to Title V, septic, water. I negotiate all of the payment in lieu of tax agreements for housing, solar, batteries. And my office oversees 61, 61A, and 61B, which is the agricultural and recreational discount applied to land in Carver. Who does it? Me, my assistant Heidi, Peter, and John, our new data collector. So there's 2 of us who are full-time, 2 of us are part-time. We have a 3-member elected board of assessors who between them have about 35 years experience, are phenomenal. If you go to the 3rd page, property inspections, when you look at the challenges that we're facing in the office, if you look from 2016 to 2022, there were essentially no property inspections being done, right? I don't know, maybe 20, 40 a year. So we fell very far behind in that cyclical inspection cycle where you have to do every house in a 10-year cycle. So we've been doing 700 a year, essentially is what we did last year. We're on track to do that this year. So that's a lot of work that we weren't doing. We outsourced it. The work wasn't being done, but it also wasn't being done in-house. Nobody was doing it. So that's a lot of work that we picked up in-house and I'm doing and the rest of the people in the office are doing. So we're a lot busier than we were 2 years ago in terms of workload. People on the road, people scheduling, people sketching this information in and valuing it.
Can I
But-
interrupt for a second?
Of course.
I have a question about that. So
Go for it.
when we outsourced it, we weren't intending it to drop like that.
That's
So-
correct. We weren't being billed for it. It was under contract. We weren't billed for work that wasn't performed.
Okay.
It just wasn't performed.
Gotcha.
The bare minimum. A new building went up, they measured it.
Yeah.
You built a deck? Not really. So bringing that back in-house, if you look back 22, 23, 24, our expenses have gone down from even 4 years ago. We have less expenses because our contract dropped. Over that same time, our salary went up slightly, but overall, the bottom line stayed the same. You cut 20 grand in a contract, you bring a guy on for 20 to do the work, the town makes more money. And you can see that on the next slide, which is new growth. So you can look back at the previous slide and see when we started doing the work in-house. Even let's say our budget went up 20 or 30 grand. The first year, you're seeing a $100,000 spike in new growth. Good money. The next year, you're seeing 250 spike in new growth when you're doing in-house. Good money. So for 20, 25 grand more, you're bringing in somewhere between 100 and 200,000 extra in new growth the last 2 years. So it paid for itself, and we were getting into a dangerous situation where you can't just not inspect. The state will make you. And we'd have a warrant article for town meeting for 200 grand for some outside company to come in and bang it out, and it'd be garbage. What's all that get you? If you flip to the next page, you got a pretty pie chart. And that's our revenue by source. 62% of the town's budget comes through the tax levy. It's done by the 4 people in my office, 2 full-time people, come up with 62% of the town's budget. When you look at local receipts, the next largest revenue source is motor vehicle excise, which comes through the assessor's office, housing pilots, and solar pilots. When you add up everything that the assessor's office either bills or collects, we're responsible for 65% of the town's budget. Our budget overall from 25 to 26 increased not even 1%. It went up 3 grand, mostly because of salaries. Our expenses dropped. I've been asked repeatedly to project new growth figures into the future. I cannot give you the new growth numbers you were looking for because I had a supplemental budget request for $33,000 for additional property tax inspections. That got cut, so your new growth is going to go back down to 500 grand as opposed to 6 or 7, and just because the funding's not there. The work will get done, it will be done correctly, but money will be left on the table in terms of revenue. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Can you explain that last part again? Why will there be money left on the table?
Well, if you look back at the slide that had the number of inspections, right? And it was a very, very minimal number of inspections. Personal property's a tricky animal in terms of assessing. It is not like a shed. You see a shed on somebody's property, in-ground pool. An in-ground pool is an in-ground pool, whether you own it, or Glenn owns it, or the YMCA owns it. You value it the same way. Personal property is unique in how it's done by ownership. It's a lot more specialized data collection. You're counting second home furniture if you're a Cape community, you're counting forks if it's a restaurant. I had money originally requested to convert to a specialized person to do that. We have a really general contractor who, as part of other work he performs, does that. It gets done. We get by. It's not great. So I mean, if you switch to somebody who specializes in it, it would pay for itself over and over and over and over.
Thank you.
Of course.
Okay, do you foresee any issues, Joe, in the 26 budget?
No.
Okay.
No, for 25, we're right where we should be. I'm over, I guess, technically in one line item right now. In 25, we finished a reappraisal, so the town gets revalued every 5 years, the whole get in the boodle. So that got done, which is why you saw expenses go up 24 to 25 to account for that. We had an assessment done of Edaville, which I went to the finance committee for 2 or 3 years ago for reserve fund transfer. When we brought a data collector on 2 years ago, I underestimated some of the expenses, gas. So I was short maybe $1,000 in my expenses, and they took it out of that reserve fund transfer. So it's all going to work out, but I'm short $1,000.
Was that
right now.
completed?
Yeah,
How did we land on that?
good. It was worth it.
Any other questions for assessors? All set? Thank you,
All
Joe.
right. Thank you, Pat. Thank
Good to
you,
see
guys.
you. Okay, take care. Moving right along, veterans, please.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Celestine Cruz. As you're aware, I'm the Veteran Service Officer for the town of Carver. I started in December of 2024. As you're aware, we're right within budget, but we have gone through many transitions since since fiscal year 2024. With that being said, we have contracted out the VSOs from Plymouth just to help us out in transitioning and making sure that all our policies and laws and paperwork is up to par. With that being said, I've gone through training with them as well, and we're right on point. I mean, the only thing that I do ask for is that we do keep up with the veterans' benefits and programs to assist them, because they really appreciate this office here, and they like to utilize our programs, such as the Chapter 115, such as the Mass Blue Cross Blue Shield, etc. Anybody else?
How many veterans are in Carver?
As a matter of fact, the last time I checked was about 900. Yeah, but there's only a few that come here. So I do a lot of outreaching
Yep.
with the different communities, as well as field work. When I say field work, there are veterans that can't make it here, so I go to their homes and assist them and educate them.
Okay, good.
Just saying, I know Celestine's new here, so I'll fill in a little bit. Again, Glenn Cannon, Town Administrator. One big change that's coming out of her department is, and this is before her time, it used to be the Assistant Veterans Agent was the full-time employee, and the Veterans Agent was a part-time employee. That was at the request of the former now Veterans Agent. I think we've gone through a few here. So anyways, after that gentleman moved on, we did switch it before Celestine's predecessor came on board. We made the Veterans Agent full-time and then made the Assistant part-time. That Veterans Agent was only here a short time and moved on. And Celestine has come on now. She's now, again, a full-time agent. She does have in her budget an Assistant Veterans Agent. That position hasn't been filled yet. We've been waiting for her to get some of the training, get her feet underneath her before she has an employee, who should be in charge of and giving them daily operations. With that said, I do believe one of the biggest challenges for the Veterans Agent is the outreach and making sure that these veterans who were going to surrounding towns for their benefits, live in Carver, and again, reaching out to other towns. Really weren't getting kind of the services they were looking for here, so we want to make sure that's happening. Celestine's very energetic, she brings a lot of energy, it's a good thing. That's what the position needs, and we need that outreach, we need to reach out, you can't, she has a lot of office hours, but you just always can't sit in the office.
No.
Especially sometimes with the veterans, you got to coax them into getting the things that they deserve, which is always kind of interesting, but it's true. So, we're hoping to build on that. Again, once she has a little bit more experience, we'll bring that assistant veterans agent on board, help with the paperwork, help with more of the office work. So again, she can spend even more time out in the community, doing the outreach that we need.
I think that's one of the things that we've been made aware of over the past few years anyway, was the communication to the veterans that are out there, particularly the ones that aren't using the services, so forth. So that's good to see.
Yeah.
Anybody, Walter, any?
No, I already had the conversation with you.
Okay, all right. Walter's our veteran, yeah. Barry?
You know what, when we walked in, you were over on the other side, working
Yes.
on a committee. How's that, is that?
As a matter of fact, that is the Avenues of Honor. There's going to be some, and that's where the big celebration comes in, right? Memorial Day. So that's where a lot of the veterans' budgets go in, as far as Memorial Day parade and the recognition. But the Avenues of Honor is something new that we're putting together so that we can have the banners here on Main Street. There are 25 poles, so we plan to double it up, so it'll be 50, and then rotate them out. And when I say that, when the banners come down, they go to the family members of, their loved ones.
That's nice.
Yeah,
I've seen that in other towns, it's really nice. The photos of them,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, thank you for doing that, for sure.
Well, we'll look forward to your endeavors, and just please let us know if you need any assistance.
Thank you, thank you.
We're here to work with you.
Thank you.
So-
I really, I'm loving what I'm doing, because they call me up and they, the veterans call me up and just thank me, because my understanding, the office was only open certain days.
Right.
So now they really like that someone is there Monday through Friday.
That's great. That's great. I'm glad to hear it.
Yes. Thank you.
Anything else you'd like to tell us?
No, that's it. I'm glad we're within budget, so nothing is over.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you. Thank you for your report. Sounds good. Moving right along. Look at that. We're on time. We're ahead. Look at that. How about conservation?
Hi everyone, my name is Amila Singh. I'm the Carver Conservation Agent. Sorry I don't have any handouts or any additional resources for you guys to look at right now, but my department is a relatively small, humble department. I'm the only employee in the conservation department. I'm working 30 hours a week. And our primary duties are dealing with wetlands protection and permitting under the Wetlands Protection Act, Massachusetts state regulations, as well as the Carver Conservation Bylaw. Typically we're working with permitting projects that are within 100 feet or 200 feet of a river or any other wetland resource area. As you know, Carver has a lot of wetlands, including a lot of cranberry bogs and agriculture in and around wetlands. So we have a lot going on in the town when it comes to wetlands protection and permitting. So I think when it comes to our budget, we're pretty well on track for FY '25. When I first came here in April of last year, I was notified a few months later that we were in a deficit for our FY24 budget. So that was something that I've really taken seriously. I'm really trying to make sure that we're staying on top of our expenses for the Conservation Commission and myself, our department. So I'm really trying to be proactive and responsible when it comes to spending. We do have additional funds that are, through our fees that go into an account for land management, which is something that, I don't get to spend a lot of time on necessarily because I have a lot of other, things that are taking up a lot of my time when it comes to permitting and just, consulting with people who have projects in the town. And so a lot of my time is taken up with the permitting process because it's just me writing all the permits and posting all the, legal ads and reviewing building permits and stuff like that. So, there is a little bit of, I think, room for our department to, grow, whether it's, me getting to spend more time in the office and working on these things, or, maybe down the line having some help in the office. But, yeah, I think right now we're pretty well on track for our FY25. And if there's any questions about what we do or how we're...
Last time you were here, you asked for an increase in hours, you got it, right?
It's for the FY26, so it's something, that's, coming up. So yes, that's something that I'm, looking at.
Well, are you looking to go to 40?
No, 35 hours. So right now I'm working 30 hours a week.
Could you work 40 and be busy?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. There's,
So you're going to be doing 35 next year?
that's the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the budget, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what kind of things are you concerned about that you can't get done?
So there's two major areas that I think I could spend a lot more time, which is one would be enforcement of the Wetlands Protection Act, and spending more time making sure that these permits that we're issuing, number one, are being followed in the way that the Conservation Commission is permitting, as well as being a little bit more proactive when it comes to, there are a lot of projects and a lot of activities that are going on, I would say, that haven't been permitted and that I just don't necessarily have the time to, get out there, speak with the people who are, involved in these activities, whether it's, on agricultural property. There's a lot of, things that I think are flying under the radar when it comes to wetlands, permitting and protection, as well as, I think the other big area, it would be land management and doing stuff with the conservation properties that we do have under the Conservation Commission's management. We have, I think it's over 350 acres of property in the town that is managed by the Conservation Commission. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for, us to use that as a town in a more appropriate way, allow more access for people. We do have some nice trails in the Cole property, but really, other than that, we don't have many, areas for people to get out on town-owned property. One of the properties is 44 Lakeview Street, right next to the Council on Aging. It's on the left side as you're going in. That property, has been owned by the town for a couple of years now, I think, and we'd really like to, start with that property, and the commission has some ideas that they'd like to move forward with, but, for me, I just haven't had very much time to, focus on that, because there's just a constant cycle of, permits coming in, and then I'm trying to issue those permits that were permitted, and yeah, so it's
And you're basically a department of one.
yes.
Okay. That's good. Any questions, anybody? Oh, go ahead.
Just a couple things in both these. One being, I think, said 24, maybe they were over budget. I think the board is quite aware of that. I think that's more to do with the administration, quite honestly, the turnover, and the turnover of the finance director. Not being able to, work with the department heads to see if they're coming up on their budget, tracking their budgets to make sure that they're, if there is something wrong, we want to move money around, we don't want to cut back on his work, but again, we want to make sure they're not going over budget, or at least bring it to the board, make sure the board's aware of that. So, not throw all that on the department heads. There's been a lot of turnover here, and the system has been the greatest to work with. And then the other thing, to just come here from the town of Carver, fairly new myself, the amount of property that the Conservation Commission is in charge of, I'm surprised. So there's a lot there, there's a lot for them to maintain, there's a lot for them to work. I know they do work with O&M on some of their properties. They just helped out with that Lakeview Street, taking down the fence and doing some cleanup over there. But it does all fall under the Conservation Commission, so there's a lot of work to do there.
Okay.
I think it's a little concerning what he said about, permitting and then not being able to follow up, and I just don't think he's got enough time. I think it's an important department to have a part-time person running it. I think it could be better utilized if he was full-time. That's my opinion.
And we do have it in the budget to bring them up to 35 hours.
Yep.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think somehow or another, you gotta find a way to follow up. 5 hours a week isn't really adequate to go follow up on what he's doing.
Any other thoughts?
The only other thing I would say is I think in our budget here for FY26, we have two items that are listed as $3,750, and I think those are duplicates of each other. And that's actually for our wonderful Ashley, who helps us out as well on our minutes. And I just think that, that's been put on there twice by accident. So.
I'm not opposed to you doubling my salary.
Duplicating stuff.
Okay.
Thank you.
So for what he just said, the two line items that are duplicate, Karen sent me an email, and they are duplicate, so she did remove the one out. So that's already been corrected.
Okay, good.
Thanks, Jill. Didn't see you there.
Very good. So, okay, then we're good. If you need any help, you know where we are.
Awesome.
Just let us
Thank you
know.
guys so much.
Okay?
Appreciate what you do.
Good. Thank you.
It's over here now.
Okay, we got planning and inspections with Mr. Bott.
Good evening. Bruce FinCom, I'm Tom Bond, the town planner here in Carver, Mass. And I want to thank Jill Martins for being here, office manager, for building, planning, conservation, health, ZBA. She's been instrumental in preparing these budgets, knows the numbers, and is up way past her bedtime tonight. So thank you for being here, Jill. And in spite of her sleep deprived state, you saw she jumped right on that duplicate line item, $3,700. Regarding the planning boards, the planning budget, which is not necessarily the planning board's budget, because my day job, which goes sometimes into the night, involves more than just dealing with the planning board. But there's the budget we've proposed is more, for the most part, level funded. The only increase is a request to increase the stipends by the planning board. There's a comparable one from the zoning board of appeals as well, where they requested an increase to their stipends. The town administrator, in his recommended reductions, has kept those at level funded. So the $4,000 increase for stipends is zeroed out in the TA's recommendations. This would be for the ZBA as well. Everything else is for the most part level funded. Just looking at a couple other items that Glenn had recommended for potential reductions were in advertising and in other purchase services. And other purchase services was $19,000 a couple years ago. So it's gone down a couple times. We've used that money in the past for compact shelving in the planning office and the inspections office in order to house the inspectors who used to be across the way. We made a space for the new IT guy. So we had to sort of compress a few folks into some other offices. We've also used some of that money prior to getting funding through CPC for renovations and, or cleanup, actually not renovations, but cleanup to 11 Green Street, where the property we're hoping to turn over to Habitat. So those are, that's, dollar amount is somewhat discretionary. First year we were here, I don't think we touched it at all, that I was here. And then someone told me about it, I'm like, well, shoot, we should use that if it's appropriate for the sources that we need. And like I said, we did for, a few $1,000s here and there for appraisals for 61A properties and cleanup on Green Street, and like I said, the compact shelving we've done before. But essentially the budget is level funded as well as before.
So is there any concerns on your part on things that you might not be able to do, that you want to do, that you're not able to?
Well, I'm an avid coffee drinker. I can drink more coffee and work more hours and get more things done, but there's always more things to do than you can get done. And so we triage those things and make sure that we're taking care of those things that are of primary importance. There has been, let's go with the technical term of buku. There have been buku various versions of how we might reorganize the operation. From a PEP department, putting them together, splitting them back. But a lot of places have assistant town planners. We're not recommending anything like that. We certainly could, fill the work with other things we might do. But at the present time, we're managing to take care of the town's business, I think, within the budgets that we've got. And because, I'm exempt, I get to work as many hours as I want. But there's only so many hours you can work. There's more hours I could work at 40 than there was at, let's call it 50 plus. So we're maintaining, we do what we do, and take care of the business and take care of the staff.
Any questions?
I'm just curious, over the years I've lived here, are there any big plans, like you're the town planner, is anything on the horizon that's significant, or is it general planning?
Well, I don't know if you heard about this MBTA zoning bylaw thing. So that's a big thing.
Yeah.
The planning board opted not to submit an article to town meeting to comply with the MBTA zoning bylaw. So at this point, the town is in a position where under the law, they have to have a zoning article approved by December 31, 2025, or be subject to the ramifications of not adopting that bylaw. And that is, at the current time, the loss of access to 13 different grants that the state provides for the town. Likely, some action by the Attorney General as well. So that is what it is. So we can create a bylaw, we can go to town meeting, and if it gets voted down, it's the same it's the same implications if we don't ever bring one to town meeting to start with. But in the discussions with the planning board on looking at identifying areas where this would be, because this is a very technical aspect of this zoning. Commonwealth doesn't want you creating zoning out in the great swamp that no one can use. So if you propose an area, they want to vet that area to make sure it can actually support the 234 units of multifamily housing that's required under the zoning bylaw, under the Commonwealth's MBTA statute. But at this point, we don't have an area identified, we don't have a zoning article going to town meeting, and we're just idling to see what the outcome of that is. Other changes to the law include ADUs, accessory apartments. So accessory apartments have historically been special permits, but now the Commonwealth has sort of done an Oprah and said, you get an ADU, and you get an ADU, and you get an ADU. Any place where there is a single-family house that is permitted by right, you just get a building permit, those people can apply for an ADU as well. So the planning board is worried about the implications of those, what impact that might have. In discussions with the technical review committee, and some of my colleagues are in the room right now, we don't see an onslaught of new accessory housing units based on the fact that it's got to meet fire code, it's got to meet building code, it's got to meet wetlands and Title V regulations. The building commissioner, who we talk about his budget in a few minutes, has said it's probably about $100,000 to build a new ADU. And based on the fact that Most people don't have 100 grand around. If you want to do an ADU, you go to the bank at a 7.9% interest rate for a home improvement loan for $100,000. If you got a 36-month loan, it'd be $3,100 a month you'd be paying to build that ADU.
Does it have to be attached to the home?
It can be attached, it can be detached.
Oh, okay.
In fact, the building commissioner will tell you it's cheaper to build it detached
Right.
because of what the code requirements you got to do to attach, to have 2 independent units under one roof. If you got a 14-year mortgage or a 12-year loan on that, you could get $100,000 and pay $1,100 a month to cover your note. And someone has to do that math. Is it worth it for me to go to the bank and borrow $100K to get $1,100 back? What kind of rent can I get on a 900 square foot apartment? So in spite of the concerns the planning board has, and we'll talk about them again tomorrow night, we don't see this as a major impediment to the town. The school has capacity in the high school. They're currently at 800, there's usually 1,100. There's been as many as 1,100 people in the high school before. Elementary school is nearing capacity, but at a couple of units here and a couple of units there, most of those things would be absorbed. School committee would be more worried about something like the 40B that was proposed at Edaville a couple of years ago, where you create something that's going to make 200 some odd units. I've talked about the fact that we have not seen a 40B in Carver in 20 some odd years. At a time when I was in Falmouth where we would see 4 or 6 a year at a time, because under a 40B, 25% of the units are affordable. And in order to underwrite the cost of those affordable units, you've got to have that money at the top end. So I believe you can get that money for the top end units in Falmouth, and you may not be able to get it in Carver. So when someone does those numbers and says, I'm going to build 200 units, which is the maximum size for a 40B, 50 of those units are going to be affordable at a rate the state sets. And unless that dollar number that you can get for that market rate unit is enough to underwrite that, then even if they get a 40B permit, very few banks are going to loan on it. Also, the lack of infrastructure, water and sewer. If somebody builds something that size, they're going to have to create a wastewater treatment plant. Optimum size for a wastewater treatment plant is about 250 units. So a 200 unit 40B doesn't quite fill that. So you've got to get the dollars for a municipal well site, for a wastewater treatment plant, a package plant. And those numbers don't sort of pencil out. So we'll see in the future. But when I was in Falmouth, money was dirt cheap. Housing was hot, money was dirt cheap. And over that time, no 40B activity in Carver. So I think that what we see is that whether it's the MBTA zoning bylaw or a 40B, there are many other places where developers can be get their return on investment they're looking for than there is in Carver.
Thank you for the update. Appreciate it.
Very good, like they're doing in Plymouth right now.
Yeah, I was just on the phone with a state rep from the North Shore who's a planner friend of mine who told me that Plymouth got a very sad letter today from the AG about their MBTA compliance. Any other questions
Questions?
for Jill?
Say, just to make it to the board, I know it's on the agenda here as planning and inspections, but I think the departments have been separated out now. I do think I'll commend these departments for working very well together. If you ever go up to town hall, they're very tight knit. I know I even like it. They have lunch together. I think that's great. And again, I see them working very well together. I agree with Tom. There are times where I've seen other big communities we have an assistant town planner. We're probably on the borderline here. Luckily, Tom loves to work and loves to put in the hours, so we probably don't even this budget, but it could be in the future. It could be. There's plenty of work for him to be doing. We didn't even talk about the green business park?
Yeah.
We didn't even talk about that development, so there's another development out there, and there's a lot of work for Tom to do.
We only spent hours with town council and everybody else on green business park. So yeah, in addition to the staff, the administration staff eating lunch together, they also interrupt their lunch when someone comes to the window. So there's never a time when the window's closed unless it's admin appreciation day and the staff, we take them out for lunch. But the staff is very cohesive, they're cross-trained, they know each other's jobs. They work together, they have lunch together, and like I said, they're union employees, and they will interrupt their lunch to answer a question for somebody at the counter rather than come back at lunch. So we're very fortunate to have the people we've had supporting us
I used to go in there and bug Jill about once a week when I had to write a check for the redevelopment authority, and I would just show up, and it was always a big smile and always a friendly welcome.
Yes, then she told me what she thought about you after you. She did not. No, the people who work there, we've created, I think, a very good environment to work in, because the people who work here, Emil, Rod, Kevin, and I, we know our jobs, we do them pretty well. We're supportive of the staff, they're supportive of us. And we're always willing to listen to things. There's nothing you can't tell me, whether you're a chairman of a committee or an admin, about something I need to clean up and fix my we're fortunate to have that kind of communication and cooperation.
Very good. Anything else from anybody? No? Very good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you both.
Sitting here with
Yeah, you want to hear from Rod?
Sure.
Yes.
We'll hear from Rod, yeah.
Yeah, I can stay right here if it's okay.
Right there.
I'm not sure I have much to say, anything exciting after Tom, but I have for myself, I have no capital expenses in the future. My budget is fairly, as you can see, level funded, with the exception of a COLA increase under salaries. So I really have nothing exciting to share with you, unfortunately. I would like to, though, if I could, just take a moment to advocate for a couple of inspectors that we have in the building department, our electrical inspector and our plumbing inspector. These are a couple of guys that have been with the town for many, many years. They're extremely reliable, professional, and they do a great job. Their weekly salaries are around $420 a week, and their increase annually is a COLA, which is between $8 and $9 per week. And these guys use their own vehicles, and they pay for their own gas, and as you know, insurance and gasoline and vehicle expense, maintenance has gone up dramatically. So we haven't put anything in the budget for this year, but it's something I'd like to begin some discussion with the town administrator in the future. And it's just not a reasonable amount, and it's such a little amount each week that $8 or $9 per week increase annually just doesn't do much. I mean, you can't even buy 3 gallons of gas for that. So that is something that I'm hoping maybe next year we can have some reasonable increase for those two guys, so we don't lose them. So.
Okay. Anything else? No? We're good?
I would say the only follow-up with Rod, we've had some brief discussions about maybe setting the fees for the inspectors and then coming back next year and maybe looking at an increase. These are experienced guys too, so those are the kind of people you want to have around. It's good for the community to have experienced inspectors who go in there, they know what needs to be fixed, and something that doesn't have to be addressed right now. So again, something Rod and I will discuss, come up with a better fee schedule, bring that in front of the select board, and then come back to the board next year.
Are our fees in line with other towns, the inspection fees?
I think the fee schedule that we have today, I think, I think some areas are equitable to other towns, but the fee schedule itself is, I think, antiquated. It's extremely difficult to create a fee. Some of our fee schedules, or most of our schedules, are based on value of work, and sometimes you don't always get an honest amount. When you base your value of work on dollar amount, you can simply change the dollar amount to reduce your fee. Now, I'm not saying somebody would do that, but it's possible to do. When things are done by the square footage, it's fair and equitable for everybody. So in revising the fee schedule, I'd like to modify it from, not all of it, but most of it, from a value of work to square footage, so that it's fair for everybody. Some of the prices we have are very low compared to other towns. In fact, some of them are so low that when we do our inspections, we're losing money. We're on many of them. So we have started to revise the schedule, and we have something that, what I think is a pretty decent draft. So I'd like to sit down with the town administrator in the near future and go over that draft and see if we can come up with something that would be fair and equitable to everybody and justify maybe a possible increase for the electrical and plumbing inspectors in the future.
Good. Sounds good. Okay. Anything else?
No.
No? Okay. Well, we thank you for
Thank you.
for your input.
Thanks.
And good to see you again, Jill.
I'm still staying, and I want you back on our.
Thank you. Okay. We have Board of Health.
Board of Health. Good evening.
Hi, Kevin.
Hi, Kevin Ford, Board of Health agent. Similar to what Rod just said, my budget is fairly unchanged over the years. My biggest expense is the landfill and engineering oversight on the North Carver landfill. When I started this job 9 years ago, the budget was around $130,000 per year. With the installation of the water main, there's been a number of reductions in terms of the oversight that they need to do on the landfill and testing of individual water samples from the homes. So right now the budget's around 75. The goal is to get the whole process out of the process that it is currently in with the DEP. It gets it down into another level. It'll never go away completely, but it should be somewhere around $25,000, $30,000 a year. And that'll be forever. That's testing for methane gas, testing some of the monitoring wells around the landfill. So that will never change. But beyond that, there's my office doesn't expend a lot of money. We do testing of 4 ponds throughout the summer months, but beyond that, there isn't all that much. The only thing that I can add is that right now, I am part of a grant program that involves 6 towns, and that's a shared services grant. But with the cuts that are taking place through, our current president, I don't know how long that grant's going to last. Currently, it's supposed to last for another couple of years. So one of the main things that I get out of the grant is a public health nurse, and that's being paid for through the grant. If the grant goes away in 2 years, we're talking fiscal year 26, 27, we may be looking for money to address that. When I first started, there was a line item for the Visiting Nurses Association that was around $11,000. I'm sure it's a lot more than that now. So if we need the services of a public health nurse in the future, it's not in the near future, but within the next few years, it's something just to keep out there, because it may be needed. And it's well received within the COA. They do programs, they do things like fall prevention programs, they do, what's that? Yeah. So, anyway, it's nothing, short term, but it's something maybe 2 or 3 years in the future.
I'm just curious more about your department. Do you do inspections of restaurants too?
Yes, we do.
So that's not a huge amount of your budget compared to the landfill and the ponds?
No, that's just, that's twice a year. I'm not crazy about them, but I do. But yeah, I do that, I do the perk tests, I do the plan reviews, those types of things.
Thanks.
And then anything else that comes up. I mean, COVID was not a fun time for my office,
Right.
by any means.
If the landfill comes off the DEP, like you were talking about, who would do the inspection? Same people, just different qual?
It would be the same people. It's just
Just less
another
than-
level within the landfill, within DEP. Right now, because it's under what they call a mass contingency plan, and that was due to all of the contamination that was found back probably 25 years ago. It's been in that phase for a long time. The goal, and through the recommendations of the engineers that are overseeing it, they're trying to get us out of that level of oversight. So, but it's always going to be there to some degree.
Contamination won't dissipate over time? I mean, it will a little bit?
Well, most of the contamination is gone, and that's because they put in a groundwater extraction plant that was in operation for a number of years, well before I even came here, which got rid of the contaminants. But they still require the continued testing. Like I say, it'll never go away.
I think back in the day, there was an elevated cancer rate in that neighborhood, right? And then, but is that kind of flattened out?
Doesn't seem to be an issue in it.
Okay, good.
Glenn?
The only thing I'd add to it, you do see the Visiting Nurse Association, VNA, and other professional services. We still carry the line item, but like Kevin was saying, it's really been cut down. The VNA's been cut down to zero, but you might have to come back if that's something we look at. I do know, my experience, particularly in the town of Rochester, again, that visiting nurse going to the COA, and sometimes it's just the simple things, it's the help them with vision tests, or taking them the blood pressure, their pulse, I think the flu clinic, right? So there's a lot of things that they do, and sometimes it's small money that saves the town a lot of money. So.
Through the grant, we did have a nurse. She was a retired nurse, but she just had a way about her, quite honestly. And she ran into some health issues, and unfortunately she's not practicing anymore. But she made a big difference. If you reached out to Connie at the COA, she would tell you that, it got to a point where people were confiding in her, So we're working toward, with this grant, we're working toward getting somebody back to fill those shoes again. It's just a matter of putting out the want ads, getting the interviews done, and rehiring. So it's a process.
And then that nurse would rotate around 6 towns?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, that's through the grant. If the grant goes away, we'd have to rehire this person for Carver only.
Or share with another town.
But I think Kevin hit the nail on the head. It's finding the right person. It's almost like a veterans agent. You have to do that outreach to get people, to get the help that they really need. Sometimes they're just not willing to even go to their own doctor. No, they don't have a doctor. No.
Anybody else? Any other issues, Kevin?
Nope.
No? Very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Kevin, we appreciate what you do.
Good to see you, Joe. And then we have the select board.
Once the board's leaving here, come on.
Everybody's walking out on you, Glenn.
I think their budget's approved, it's great.
Yeah, see ya.
Can't say I blame them, right? So Glenn Cannon again, town administrator. Just to give you an update on what our department's been doing. We spent a lot of time when Pat was on a subcommittee we had going over the financial policies in town. I've spent a lot of my time here, coming up, I want to say, 9-10 months now, on the financial side of the venue. We've had a number of finance directors turn over. We've had another number of town administrators turn over. That's not a great thing for any town. You kind of lose your direction. I think you saw with Emil talking about how, a department could even go over budget and it's not really being addressed. Those are the kinds of things you never really want to see. So, even from the select board and going to town meeting, we want to make sure those policies were firmed up, make sure we're spending our money wisely and we know where our money's going. So those are good things we've been working on. Part of that was also the split with the school. That's very unique to Carver. I've done that. This is my third community now. Well, fourth if you count Middleborough. I was a elected member of the finance committee in Middleborough before I was town administrator. So the split is very unusual. Sets down the budget for the school, gives it to them early, lets them know how much money they can spend. I think that's a nice way to go about it. It cuts down on, like Pat said, some of the battles on the floor of town meeting.
There's no floor fights.
Yeah.
And that's great.
Yeah, that is great, because sometimes it get very nasty,
Oh, yeah.
And some of these schools, they can pack a town meeting if they need to, so, you got to be very cautious there. With that said, we also worked through the budget. We've gone through the budget process. I think that's one of the things that, when I came on board, setting a schedule for that budget process, making sure we have it, making sure that you have a balanced budget. I think that was something that lacked a little bit last year. And again, you have all that turnover. It's hard to kind of nail that down. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of meeting with all the department heads. Me and Karen spent an enormous amount of time together, the finance director and I, reviewing these things, going over and over again. I told Pat, and I told the members at the last meeting, and before you got your book, Karen and I probably had 12 budgets. Honestly, you just go over them over and over them and over them. You heard about a double count tonight, as a matter of fact. Again, that's us going over them too. So, a lot of good work there. Kind of describing my position in the staff here. I have 3 members, 3 admin assistants in front of me, the assistant town administrator, and then 2 admin assistants. It seems to be working well. Our department's a real catch-all. That staff will help anybody in town with any problem they have. I think that's a good thing. Again, I see that cooperation in Carver. I like to see that a lot. I think that's great. Sometimes you get into these into towns and I don't want to say we want to be cautious with our words here. The bickering that maybe you want to see between departments, it just doesn't help anybody. It really doesn't. When you're trying to get the job done, you got to put some things aside just to get focus on the work. And I think my department does a good job of doing that. We're also in charge of procurement for the entire town. Procurement in Massachusetts is a very difficult measure to go through. It's complying with the law. Very important, making sure all the departments are complying with the laws. They go out to bid on all their projects. You always want to make sure that you don't get caught doing something like that. You can actually even award projects and have that award be rescinded by the state if you don't follow the correct procurement laws. So that's something you don't want to do. You never want to get somebody up to work and then have it backfire on them. I would say also in my time here, done a lot of time with the North Carver Water District. Again, trying to straighten that out, get that back under consideration. I am going to bring an article forward at town meeting. You'll see, to dissolve the North Carver Water District. And I do want to be clear on this at a meeting at the Redevelopment Authority. But it's the management of the North Carver Water District. The North Carver Water District won't go away. But I want to bring it in as a town department. Right now, it's 3 elected members. They are volunteers. I believe it's an incredible amount of work that they have to put in. I don't think that's fair to them. I don't think it's fair to the town. I don't think it's fair to the residents. I think as a result of that, the North Carver Water District right now is not pumping any water. It was just too overwhelming for a volunteer board who aren't experts in water. So I think we need to have that in-house. I do. Right now the town of Middleborough is supplying us water. It's working out very well right now. We want to continue that until we can get up to speed. You asked the town planner. There are development pressures in town. Right now, they're limited by the amount of water that we can supply to the developments. I want to see these come in, particularly they seem to be more commercial than they are residential. That's a good thing for the town. Usually you don't bring along the school children with it, so it's a win on the financial side, so that's something we want to work on.
Glenn, we do have the North Carver Water District coming in Wednesday night.
Yes, I plan on attending.
Okay.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be. I have Capital that night too, but yes, you do want to talk to them about it. And I go to their meetings, I'm quite frank with them. And I know the chair is trying to do a good job, but again, I just think it should be a town department.
It's got to be.
It really does, Pat. It's an incredible amount of work. We have Dave Seatendorf here. I don't think he's been in front of the board yet. Facilities manager. He does have his water operating license. So again, he's a professional. And not that he's going to be doing all the work, but he can direct the consultants who are doing the work. And that's something we really never had here. Somebody like that. It was somewhat of a quasi-town department. We paid for, no matter what you see in their budget, I'll tell you right now, the town paid for a lot of services that went in there. A lot, and a lot of hidden services, because town staff is doing it. And that's, you don't always see that reflected in the budget. Might be reflected in the O&M budget, but they're going there and doing the work. Let's be honest with the taxpayers and tell them exactly what it's costing us. So let's figure that out, I think it's better if that's a town department.
I got a quick question. So when I moved here 50 years ago, everybody had well water, but then did they create the North Carver Water District to lure commercial establishments in, or?
No, it was because of the landfill. Contamination,
Okay.
and they're required to do it. So, we have an obligation to those, to those residents to provide them with clean water. So that's part of it, of being a town department too.
Yeah.
We have an obligation there.
How many
Really a little of both.
Yeah.
How many homes do we supply?
I know it's 131 customers. I'm not sure the mix. But some commercial, I know Shaw's, McDonald's.
Yeah.
I remember that was back in the 90s when I first got here. Was what was his name? Jack Hunter? Was that the guy?
I know the name.
Town planner, yeah. And it got created actually because of the landfill, but the other long-range plan was to draw commercial enterprise in with the availability of town water, which never really happened. So
I guess my follow-up question is, like I live off of South Meadow Road, so there's no vision for the rest of the town getting public water, right?
As of right now, no,
Yeah.
there is no.
Okay.
And it's primarily expensive putting that in. Again, be happy to get it up and running again, so we're pumping water and be able to attract businesses.
Yeah.
That'd be a first step. I don't really see any real expansion of it.
All right, thank you.
The last thing I see, if you look into the budget, the one thing you'll see is we did remove the benefits line item. And every town I've ever been in, it's always been a separate section, just benefits all by itself. The only thing I really know is why it was in ours, because we paid the bill. We wrote the check for them, and that's fine, but I think it really should be. You see a decrease here. It's almost like a $400,000 decrease, but it isn't. We're not cutting staff or services or anything like that. We just shifted that money to a separate line item. So
That's
other than that,
current employees' benefits?
yes, current employee benefits. Again, assistant town administrator, 2 admin. I really don't see staff increasing. I don't believe we're over. We always have plenty of work to do, but I don't see us being overwhelmed right now. So I don't see any real changes coming along with that one.
okay, have you got any questions?
Nope.
Well, Glenn's here. You got it.
I'll be here other nights too. So.
I gotta say, especially with Karen, like when we have questions, she goes out of her way to explain it to layman's terms. Like I think that in the past, sometimes people are like, you ask a question and people roll their eyes because like now I got to explain this whole accounting practice. She seems to really go out of her way to try to explain it to us.
Yeah, she's doing a really good job.
Yeah, well, that's great. That's good. Just so I am a professional engineer, right? I was in the world of transportation. I always took it as the greatest compliment. People always tell me, Glenn, you don't speak like an engineer. And I always thought that was great because I always think of people who come to meetings, they don't understand the jargon you use, or the talk you use, or even the concepts you have sometimes. So, I think you always want to have that approach that, people are just trying to learn. They're not attacking you. Just let them figure it out.
When you talk to somebody and you can tell they don't want to explain it to you, but they have to. And
Well, that's nice to hear. That is nice to hear.
Yeah. So
Karen, like Tom, like myself, like all, spent a lot of time, a lot of hours. I know she works very hard.
She does.
And that can wear on you, you know?
Yep. Anybody else?
No?
All set, Glenn?
All set? Well, thank you for your
And
time.
we thank you for addressing us.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, and being here. And we got 2 more of these to do. We're gonna be doing Wednesday night, we're gonna be doing next Monday night. And we got a joint meeting with
Select board?
Select Board
Yeah.
Tuesday night
Yes. On the 4th.
on the 4th,
On the 4th, yes.
unless something happens,
No, I don't see it.
or changing the budget.
Yeah.
I don't see that happening, because we gotta get it done by the 7th anyway.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so we ought to be able to knock that off. So, anything else from the board members?
Nothing for me.
No? Can we have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, Tony?
Second.
Second, Walter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, meeting adjourned. Thank you.